Today I wanted to show a really cool effect. That is creating some stylized video titles in Blender that look like handwritten text. So I'll start by firing up Blender. And from the start screen here in Blender, we'll just click General. First thing I want to do in Blender is just click, can left mouse click and drag over the box and the light here, the cube and the light, and then just delete both of those. So hit delete on the keyboard. The camera, what I want to do with this is actually reset it. The way I have my keyboard mapped, this isn't so easy, but generally what you can do to reset the camera to the origin point of the scene is to hit Alt S, Alt G, and Alt R. Only Alt R works for me, so I'm going to have to go over into the side here. You can access this menu by either hitting the N key on your keyboard or clicking that little arrow that you see up there. So hit N and select our camera item here. Click on item up at the top, and I can clear the location by hitting entering zeros manually in this transform. Generally what I do with a camera at this point when I'm working with two-dimensional graphics in a 3D space is I'll take it and move it to a Z location, something like 15 meters. And we can see what that looks like with the grid here. Basically, I'm using the grid to place my various items. So let's take a look at the camera view. If I click camera, at 15 meters, that gives us a nice grid that we can use for two-dimensional animation. So the next thing that we need to do, or what I prefer to do at this point, you can of course just hand draw whatever text or visual you'd like, but I actually like to use a text item as a guide. So we'll hit Shift A to add a new item, and then if we hit the T key, it'll automatically add a text item there. And with that text still selected, I'm going to hit the Tab key on my keyboard, and we'll just enter some text here that we'd like to use. Something like that. Hit Tab again. All right, and I want to change the font of this this text. So I'll go into the font section, or the text section over here on the right side in the properties. And I want to change the alignment first to center and center. And that'll center our entire item there, which will be nice for manipulating things later. Now, one thing that I've noticed here is that I may actually want to do a different font size for this top text and this bottom text. I'm not going to worry about that just yet. For now, what I'll do is go into the font submenu on the right. And you can see here, if I click this little font drop down, all we have is B font regular. That's the built-in Blender font. And we want to change that, so hit the folder icon for the regular font. And then you have to find that. If you're on Linux, usually you can find your fonts directory for your system from USR, user, share, and then FONTS, hit enter, and you should find all of your fonts there. If you go into TTF, you can find a number of system fonts. So if there's something here that you want to use, is just an outline that you can be tracing for your handwritten text. You can select that here. I'm just going to see if maybe we can, let's see what we have here. Sorry, I didn't plan this ahead of time. I like an italic text like this. It looks a little more hand-drawn. I think I'm going to go with this this Fira Sans italic. I don't want it to be super light though. Fira Sans italic. There we go. This one's condensed. I like that. That looks like handwriting to me to some extent. So I'll select that font. Click Open Font. There we go. And Really, I'm not super sold on the way it looks with just the capital letters there. So let's go in actually and let's do capital and lowercase. Still not really sold on that font. Let's choose a different font. We've got time here. So again, folder icon. It'll open up back to the directory that we were in before. So let's just choose something that may be a little more appropriate. Let's try, what I'm actually going to do, I think, is show you the other font directory. So if you've installed fonts on your machine, just for your own user, those are going to be located in the home. So it'll be, directory will be home.fonts fonts. Oops, I got that wrong. So it'll be home, your username, of course. Oops, .fonts. There we go. All right. So what I think I'll do is just grab Roboto condensed, and we'll go with Roboto condensed italic. Open font. That's fine. It's not perfect, but we'll go with it. So, like I said, one thing that I'd like to do is, well, first, let's change the size of this. I want this to be a lot larger. So we'll go 1.5. We'll try that. Maybe 1.8 as the size. That's pretty good as a starting point. All right. And then I'm going to hit tab here to exit the edit mode. The other thing I want to do is pull these lines a little closer together. So let's adjust the line height, line spacing, pull that down just a little bit so they're closer to each other. Maybe something like 0.75. That's good. And then I want to make actually this top text the same width as the bottom. So I'll essentially separate these items out. I think I want to make the entire text larger, so let's go with maybe 2.5. That might be too big, but no, that looks pretty good to me. All right, so what I'm going to do now is hit Shift D, and that duplicates the entire item, and then I'll just hit Escape on the keyboard. So now we have two of the exact same text item. I'll hit Tab to go into edit mode and just delete Studio from this one. Hit Tab again, click on Studio, hit Tab to edit this text item, hit up with my keyboard, and remove Linux from this one, hit Tab again. So now we can see that they're separate text items. In the top one here, we can change the size of independently. So let's do that. Maybe something like 2.7. Maybe even larger, like 3. That's pretty good. That gets us really close to, the same width for both items. And I think since this did go up a little bit with the size, I'll pull this, I'll pull this line spacing down just a little bit too. Maybe 0.6 or 0.65. That looks pretty good. Okay, now we can stop messing with this text. What I'm going to do is just make sure these are both excluded from the render by clicking on the little camera icon. That means they won't render. Now, what we need to do is add a new grease pencil item by hitting Shift A, go down to grease pencil, select blank. So we have a new grease pencil object that we've added. And what we can do at this point from the top here from object mode, just select draw mode. All right, and then let's take a look at this. Okay, that's really small, so I'm going to undo that, Control Z. I'm going to change my radius to something like 100. Let's see what that looks like with this. Control Z, that looks pretty good. I'll maybe go with something like 120 as the radius for my pen here. And instead of pencil, I want to change this to maybe something like this F ink pen. Oh, and that reset my radius, so let's go 120 again. We have That's pretty good. Yeah, I think that's going to work well. Next thing that I want to do is with just zoom in. I can do that with the just scrolling with the mouse wheel. So zoom in quite a bit, especially if you're working with a mouse like I am. Hit the Shift key on your keyboard, and then middle mouse click and drag to just kind of zero in on one specific area where you want to work. So we're basically going to be tracing this text. The other thing you'll notice is if you just draw, it's going to be really tough to make something that looks good. So what I like to do is I'll go into stroke, and then go to stroke at the top, and then stabilize stroke. You can enable this here, and then you can change the radius and the factor to your liking. For me, the default usually works pretty well, but we'll see how this goes. So let's start. You can see that it gives us a little bit of smoothing to the stroke. It's not perfect, but I think that's going to work out for us in the end. All right, Shift again, middle click, drag to move the view. And then I'm going to show you how you can fix maybe some of the mistakes that you might make while you're doing this tracing later on. The key here is to do things as quickly and efficiently as possible, and not to spend too much time lingering on these tasks. So I'll show you how you can achieve great results with even pretty sloppy handwriting with the mouse. Shift, click, move. Again, Shift, middle click, sorry. Oh man, I'm really off with my S's, but we'll fix it. I'll show you how to do that. T, come on, U. Shift, middle click, move, D, I, oh man. Virtually, because I'm rushing this, I'm actually going to redo that one. Virtually every letter needs some editing. So I'll show you how to do that now. So we drew everything out. We almost colored within the lines there, but I did not do a great job. So instead of draw mode, we'll change this over to edit mode. And then what I need to do, the secret sauce for this is to enable proportional editing up here at the top. So click on this little dot with a circle around it. All right. And then we'll just zoom in starting from where we started and just kind of fix things as we go. So what I typically do is just select one or a few vertices on these grease pencil items, hit G to move them, and then scroll with my middle mouse wheel to change the proportional editing influence. So I kind of want it to do something like that, but then I can move this back up, this back down, and it's kind of just a push and pull to get things to where they look, pretty decent and kind of line up with your guides, if you're using guides. And you know what? If you have a tablet and you have wonderful penmanship and you want to just, write something out, that'll look even more organic and better in the long run. So definitely encourage you to do that if that's something that you'd rather do than follow the guide text and nudge things around here after the fact. But this works pretty well, and it's really quite quick. If you're doing a lot of titles, you might want to just freehand write them with a Wacom tablet or something like that. Okay, keep going. And yeah, it's just, you just kind of nudge things around until they kind of fit. Sorry, my dog is she has an itch. There we go. She likes to help me work. The dog loves to help me work while I'm making Linux Studio videos. All right. Oh my goodness. Be sure to hold the shift key on your keyboard when you're moving around with that middle mouse click. Otherwise, you're gonna experience what I just did there. Oh my gosh. Boy, this just takes a little bit of time. It's really not much in the scheme of things. A little bit of patience and you can make it look quite nice. That's a fairly decently shaped S. But just a little more nudging. Okay, I'm happy with the S. T's a little squiggly. We'll fix that. Here we go. And we'll just keep going. All right, that looks pretty good to me. So at this point, what I'm going to do is just hide the text, the guide text that we have there. I'm going to move this from edit mode to object mode. You can see our drawn title there. I think it looks pretty slick. All right, next thing we need to do is if we want to make any changes, first of all, we need to uncheck on this layer. So go into the settings for this grease pencil item and uncheck use lights. That's very important. Uncheck use lights. All right, and then go into the material. This is set to black. If we want to change this, we can. We'll just make a new material. I'm going to call this one white and just set the color to white. There we go. That looks good to me. Something you may notice is that it's maybe not exactly white. If that's the case, go into your scene settings here, or render settings. Wait, where is it? Where is it? Yeah, it's up here at the top. This one. And then go to color management, and from filmic, change that to standard. It's going to be very important that you have that set to standard. All right. Especially, you'll see this in the, let's go to the rendered view. Yeah, so if this were set back to filmic, it looks kind of gray. So view transform standard, okay? Set that to standard. And the other thing we want to do is click on film and transparent. So this will have a transparent background. All right, so the text looks great. And the next thing that I want to do with the text is add some modifiers. So go to modifier over here on the side. Make sure again that your grease pencil layer is selected. All right, so we'll add a modifier. And the first one I add is noise. And immediately, oh man, that messed our text all up, right? But what we need to do is add a little bit of movement, a little bit of character to this text. I like to do it anyway. This is optional. You don't have to, but I like to do this stylistically. So we go into noise scale, and I'm just going to turn this up until it looks quite squiggly. You know, somewhere in the 0.5 neighborhood works pretty well for me usually. And then the position influence, I'm going to turn that down to something really small like 0.05. And then here under randomize, which is checked, we want to keep that checked. It says mode steps, and I'm going to change this from 4 to 2. So it gives us a new random value every 2 frames, and that'll look a little more like hand-drawn animation. So what I'm going to do now is just hit play, and you can see that there's that kind of wiggliness that maybe you're used to seeing with like cartoon text and stuff like that, where, you know, hand-drawn frames. So I like to do that. Again, you can play around with the noise scale, you know, maybe make this a smaller value like 0.2 or maybe let's go with 0.3. And then the other thing that I like to do is influence the thickness. So that'll kind of look like, you know, maybe where maybe a pen had more or less pressure. You don't want to go all the way up or it'll look crazy like, you know, skeleton bones. So let's just turn this down to, and maybe that is the effect that you want. You can certainly do it. I'm just going to do 0.1 on there just to give a little bit of influence. I think that looks really nice. I may actually go just a little bit smaller with that. Because I want it to be just a subtle effect, you know, like I really tried to draw the same letters for every frame, but, you know, I'm human. So that looks good to me. Next thing we want to do is we want to make this look like we've written the text out. So we want to use the build modifier. So we'll go to add modifier build. And you can see right away, when it goes back to the start, it's like we just wrote this text. But what I like to do, I'm just going to stop this for now, is I like to use the manual factor, which you can, if you'd like to just roll with what's available here, you can do a start delay, however many frames. So we're at 115 now. So if I put 100, then it's not going to start until frame 100, and then start the animation. Animation duration is this frames here. So if it were 200, and say this was a start delay of 0, the whole animation would be done by 200 frames. And this is a really quick way to kind of understand like what is a good pace. So how many frames do we really need to write this thing out? This is a little bit slow. So let's go back to 100 here and just see what that looks like again. That looks a little more normal. You know, there are some areas where it looks strange to me, which we're going to address that. Okay, so I'll stop the playback. We'll go back to frame 1. And then I'm going to enable this factor option. And I'll set a keyframe right here at frame 1. All right, so that's a 0 factor. And if I move this, you can see that it allows me to control the exact factor of the animation. So again, 100 frames look pretty good. We'll go to 100, set this all the way to 1, add a keyframe there. And then if we play this back, it should look relatively similar to what we had before. The only difference you may notice is that it starts and ends slowly. The interpolation on our animation is Bezier and not linear. So if we select both of these keyframes down at the bottom, just box select them, click, drag, box select, yeah. Hit the T key on your keyboard. You can change the keyframe interpolation from Bezier to linear. So change that to linear. It'll look a little bit more natural, but there are still some areas on the curves where it takes more time than on the straight. So you can kind of identify what those areas are, add additional keyframes. You know, if there's something to you that seems like that eye is super fast. So let's go back to where the eye starts. Frame 8. So we have 0.07. That's where the eye starts. And that's fine. So let's just actually add that as a keyframe. And then we'll go to where the eye ends, which is really frame 11, 0.1 basically. So we can drag that out a little bit by going, say, to something like frame 15, and then going 0.1 here in the factor, and then adding another keyframe. So it just kind of slows down the eye. The T was really fast too, so let's go back to the start of the T. Anything that's straight is going to be really, it's going to move really quick. So 61, I'll hit a keyframe there, and then we'll move to wherever the end of the T is. Basically frame 65, which is we'll say 6.3. I'm just going to move this over to say 70.63. I think I said 6.3. I meant 0.63 as the factor. Hit a keyframe there, and then we'll watch that T again. Yeah, and you can just kind of keep nudging like that. You know, the eye is going to be really fast. So eye starts here at 86. Hit a keyframe. And it ends here at 89. So let's take this value from 89, 0.86 basically. We'll take 0.86 and just put it right about 92. 0.86. This can get really confusing, but it's worth doing it because it makes your animation just look all that much more natural when it's playing. All right, so we've got our wiggly text, and the text builds as if we're writing it in real time, which can be really nice for things like explainer videos. And then what I want to do at the end of this title, essentially, we'll start at maybe 210, is I want all of this to be removed from the screen. So we'll add another build modifier. And then this second build modifier, I'm just going to change the name of it so I don't get confused. We'll call it fade. And then we need to change the transition from grow to vanish. All right. And then again, I'm going to use the factor instead of the start delay in the frames. I'll start right here, factor of 0 at 210 frames. And then we'll move this to, I'm just going to go, to the last, we'll go with 248. We'll go to 248 and then hit a factor of 1. Again, just make sure that the interpolation here, T, is linear, okay? And that looks pretty good to me. I'm not going to make any changes there. I might actually make this a little shorter, like going through it with an eraser and hitting that text really fast, getting it off the screen. So we'll get these. I think that's a good duration for the fade. So that's our effect right there. But we're still in 3D space with this. What do we do next? We could render out the sequence as images, but I prefer not to do that. Instead, let's take this. I'm going to actually, save the file. We'll save it. We'll call this one Blender handwritten titles. There we are. Project. Save. All right, so what we'll do at this point is I'm going to rename my scene. I'm going to call this one title text, all right? And then what I'm going to do is create a new scene by hitting this little, it looks like a copy icon. Boom. New scene, just click new, brand new scene. Another thing it might be worth taking into account right now is your frame rate, which we maybe should have discussed before, but this is set to a frame rate of 24 frames per second. You can adjust all of this here if you'd like to. 24 frames per second is going to work just fine for me. I like that that means the step offset for the wiggle on the text is basically 12 FPS, which is a classic animation frame rate. So we'll go to, title text, and then, we're just going to go ahead and create a new, completely new scene. And at the top, hit the plus icon, go to video editing, select video editing, and then we have our video editing area. Sweet. So what we can do now is add all of our video assets that we want to edit. I'm going to start with a color. I like to do this as just a kind of a bottom layer for my video composite. Is have a black layer or something like that. That if I have strips fading in and out, there's something below. Just to it really doesn't matter if you're just putting black there. It'll render out black as long as your video is RGB. So basically that's in a good spot. The next thing I want to do is actually add my scene. So I'll hit Shift A and we'll click Scene, and you see title text is right there. So if I hit play, my title text is gray again. What's going on? Again, we need to change our color management and this properties here from filmic to standard. Okay, and that'll be white. That looks quite nice. There we go. Cool. And then the next thing is to, I like to, move this up a few layers. I think the next thing is to lengthen our project. We'll maybe add some video assets from Shift A once again. Click Movie, and then we'll select some video to put in there. Just find something that's on my machine here. I've got some fun stuff. Here's me goofing off with an NPC. Add movie strip. Display here some cool things you can. I got a question on a video recently. First, display waveform for the audio. You can see where your audio is, and then thumbnails for your video. You can enable that from where is it? It's the forget right over here. Yeah. So this view layers or overlays, enable thumbnails, and then you'll get thumbnails for your video. This one's pretty samey, but for some footage that's going to be really handy. We'll start here. We'll cut that. Oops. Cut that with K. Select the items we want to remove, X. And then just kind of sync this up. I kind of want this to come in right around where the text is dissolving. So maybe right about there. Have this come in. Instead, actually, I want the audio. Let's do what's called an L cut, or no, I guess this would be an L cut, right? Anyway, we want the audio to come in first. It'll come in just when we start, basically. And then this one will cut with a K, just the video, not the audio. And then both of them, select both again, right click, both strips, right click. Where is it? Why isn't it giving me the option? This one anyway, we want to fade in. I want to fade in the audio too. I don't know why it wouldn't let me do both at the same time. There we go. So now we have fades. Watch this. We got our title. And a video. So that works pretty well. I hope that's helpful. You know, you can do text, but you can do other things too. You can draw anything you want. You can use multiple colors and have those, you know, different layers build in different times and stuff like that. And there's really a lot you can do with this. This is just kind of a quick and dirty way to add some character to your titles on your videos. So thanks for watching. Appreciate the support. And you know, if you find value in this type of content, maybe you're creating videos and music on Linux. Love to hear from you. Leave a comment. You know, subscribe. Go ahead, linux-studio.com, and just, you know, check out the articles available there. Get in touch with me. Again, love to hear from you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.